You all know Smitty. He actually doesn't need any presentation, so because we know Smitty. So go ahead, Mr. Big.
All right. Well, good evening. Thank you. All right, today, hello everybody. How you doing? This is going to be interactive. No one wants to sit and listen to a bald guy talk for 15 minutes, right? Especially me. So we'll keep it interactive. Jim, thanks for turning down the volume because nobody wants to hear me so loud. Ask yourself a quick question tonight. How important is your data? And first and foremost, I'm not selling anything, okay? Hold on one second. Something I'm going to sell. Okay, see this item right here? What's this item? Anybody know? This is going to be interactive, by the way. What's this item? Yes. It's a hard drive, right? An external hard drive. USB-C or USB 3, high speed, and someone's going home with this tonight. It has a little bit of use. It's refurbished by Smitty, deep level formatted and all that. But it's 4 terabytes, okay? These on Amazon right now are about 65 bucks. So they're really cheap. But we're gonna talk about this today and a lot of other stuff, okay? So the reason I want you to ask that question, how important is your data? Because I hear a lot of discussions that happen on the repeater. They happen in environments like this, and people go, oh, I don't want my data out in the cloud. I'm scared of my data being in the cloud. That's fair. You know, I've got a hard drive. I've got it all backed up to my hard drive. Okay. Is that plugged into your computer? Yeah, okay. So a lot of you probably think you are protected, but you're not. And I'm going to point out how unprotected you might actually be. The idea for this came from the Palisades fire. At the time, one of the people that I was working with, his house survived the fire, but unfortunately, his computer and his data was all lost. His son, I guess, had the window open, and I don't know the whole story, and his neighbor lost his data, and even with fire safes, they lost their data. So we'll talk about different things and how and what you can do to kind of up your game. There are really 2 types of hard drives that exist out there. You've seen these terms before. We're going to talk about what they mean. SSD, and you've probably seen spinning disk or kind of traditional hard drives. Spinning disk, this has moving parts. SSD, no moving parts, just chips. So let's talk about the SSD myth that exists today. Different types of SSD drives that exist right now. There's a whole bunch of them, right? In fact, when you go on Amazon, you probably have seen different versions, different styles. What does this all mean? And hey, can I retrofit my current computer with an SSD hard drive? Okay, so let's start with the SATA SSD. What is a SATA SSD? This is the style of non-spinning disk hard drives that'll work pretty much in any computer. They interface with your current IDE bus, which every computer has. I shouldn't say that, but most computers, the vast majority do. It typically performs okay, not super fast, not super slow. It has components in it, just like every other type of SSD drive. PCIe SSD. These are very similar to the last, except these actually fit into your PCIe slot. Now, why do I bring this up? Because you don't want to go buy one of these if you don't have an available PCI slot. So you do, if you're going to go this route, have to know a little bit more about your computer. Right now, by the way, I'm talking about all internal drives, but the same technology does apply to these little portable drives as well. NVMe, so this is a newer format to SSD. You'll see here on the right-hand side, these little pins right here. This fits into a specialized high-speed slot. That's right. These are some of the best performing SSDs out there, but you do have to have a PC that is capable of accepting that in. M2 SSDs, so these are very common in laptop computers, for example. The form factor could be used in the same type of interfaces, for example. They've kind of been these are probably the most popular, I would say. They are the smallest. And then mSATA SSDs, these are smaller than a standard SSD hard drive, the 2.5-inch size, commonly used for ultra thin. So these are really, from a space saving standpoint, probably the smallest that exist. So are SSD drives reliable? The answer is yes. However, are they perfect? No. Do they last forever? No. Even if you take care of it, does it last forever? No. SSDs have a limited amount of read and write cycles that they can do. It's called I/O. We all know I/O in this hobby, right? Inputs and outputs, right? So every time you write something, that's an input. Every time you read something, that's an output. And there is a limited number. It may seem insignificant, or maybe 10 million or 100 million or 500 million. Think about how often you call for a file and how often that file calls for 10 more files. So, fact is, they don't last forever. Let's see here. Yeah, typically 5 to 10 years is what you see of a lifespan. So have a plan. And let's talk about a couple different plans. Let's start with what I call the low-tech plan. Okay? Low-tech plan. Having a backup is better than nothing. Now, at a minimum, a spare hard drive with your important files is a good idea. However, you should never leave your backup drive connected to your machine. You say, well, what good is that? I mean, how do I get data onto it? Well, okay, we're good there. But you should never leave it connected. Does anybody know why you should leave, other than the obvious, why shouldn't you leave your laptop or your backup hard drive connected to your computer? Anybody know the answer right off?
Your computer's always accessing it, regardless if you're not actively using it, it's always looking at it, pulling information.
True. There's another one. Anybody else?
Repeat?
Come again? Oh, he said everybody can access it. You're leaving all your data out there, and if you get...
The computer's always
the computer's always accessing. Sorry about that.
It's just sitting there.
Just sitting there.
And it goes out and queries it every now and then.
Yeah. So what Scott is saying is just a lot of activity on the drive. So you're creating wear and tear on the drive. That's absolutely valid. The heads aren't parked. They're moving every time it does something. Any more other really... Yeah, there we go. Dan. Security. I'm going to give you that one. Viruses, right? It is very common to get exploited, and one of the great things that people that write viruses, they love to clean out your data. That is one of the greatest things, and one of the things most viruses like that do is they scan your drive bus and they look for any hard drive you have mounted, and guess what? If your portable drive's there, it's getting wiped. No doubt. Storage is cheap. Okay, USB SSD drives are fine. They're a little bit more expensive. But again, about $60 right here for a little bit of an insurance policy. So should you only have one of these? Let's talk about that. All right, before we talk about that, let's talk about offsite storage. This is a highly debated topic among the group here. I've brought this topic up on the repeater during the coffee break. I've brought it up on various nets, just randomly speaking to folks on the repeater. And it's funny. It's a very, very polarizing to talk to amateur radio operators about how they feel about offsite storage. A lot of people don't like putting content in the cloud. By the way, you all do realize your call sign gives basically your home address to anybody out there in the world. At any rate, though, I digress. Offsite storage. What's the value of offsite storage if I have a fireproof safe? Well, the example from the Palisades fire, my buddy's neighbor had a bunch of SSD drives in a safe that was apparently rated, I want to say, for like 1,800 degrees for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever the case may be. And guess what he had when he got back? He had the safe. It was still there, by the way. The safe survived. Everything inside was melted. Plastic was melted, chips were melted, soldering points were melted. The heat. So fireproof safes may be fireproof for documents, but they do have a duration of time that they can accept heat and such. Not a good location to store your backup. So offsite storage. I worked as a systems engineer for a long time, and for about 20 years I was rotating tapes. Anybody here ever seen tape drives or backing up the tape, for example? There we go. Some of you have worked in that realm. Yep, I see Oregon's hand as well. So rotating tapes, but there's something there that I want to bring up about rotation, because that's kind of the key here. So let's continue on. Okay, best option if you're low tech. Get two. Okay? Write your data to this. And by data, a lot of what we do is online anyways these days, but I mean like photos of your grandkids or photos of your kids or, important documents. Scan your documents in and put them on a hard drive. Again, about $50, $60 investment. We get two of these, we're at about $100. But at the end of the day, take one of these with those important pictures, with those important documents, the things you can't get back, give it to your son, your daughter, a friend. Store it somewhere else, and every month or the next time you see them, take the mate of that drive, the second one you bought, give it to them, take the other one back and update it. and you rotate it through, just like a tape library if you do it in a commercial world. You're kind of doing the same thing, not as frequent, but again, better than nothing, and especially a great option if you don't want to use offsite storage or a solution like that. Okay, have a plan, right? More than anything, you need to have a plan. So let's talk about a high-tech plan. There are a couple big names out there that do this very well, and I'm not a big fan of putting my data out online. I'll be transparent with all of you, but I subscribe to one of these services, and I'll tell you why I chose one of these. In fact, I've been a customer of both of these services. I'm with Backblaze right now. Reason I'm with Backblaze, just to give you a little bit of idea, Backblaze will back up any physical hard drive connected to your computer. So it could be a drive like this, it could be the internal drive, but anything that's physically connected to the computer that you're working on can be backed up. Carbonite only allows you to use internal devices. So it limits you to just the hard drive on your computer. Now this is incredibly valuable too because it's going to back up your OS, it's going to back up important files on your PC. So this is really helpful more than just your data. Also, this is hands-off. So as you're making changes, it's going to do an incremental backup in the cloud, and you can go back to that incremental backup and, oh, I deleted my daughter's 4th birthday pictures. What am I going to do? No problem. I've got an archive. I've got the ability to go back. Now, the argument can be made, Smitty, what about security? You're putting that out in the cloud. Anybody can see pictures of your daughter. Well, they can follow me on Facebook and see that. But this is all encrypted. It's encrypted in transit. It's encrypted in storage. Is it possible that it can be hacked? Of course, anything's possible. We've seen security breaches throughout the world in different organizations. But you have to ask yourself if that minimum chance of you having your data exploited online versus not having the data after a fire, not having the data after a natural disaster, or whatever the case may be. So you have to ask that. Security, right? That's the big word there. Backblaze encrypts all data during transmission and storage in their data center. Again, I'm focusing on them not because there's no affiliate code or anything like that. I only bring it up because I have a lot of experience using it. You can apply for additional levels of encryption on your backup in your security settings, adding private encryption keys. That means your data is tokenized with a key that is specific to your data. They can be dynamically generated. And it is impossible to view or restore files from a backup computer that's secured with a PEK token. So keep that in mind, private encryption key. What I'm trying to say at a high level is your data is probably safer than you're giving these companies credit for. All right, so who's going to get started when you get home? Come on. Okay, thank you. At least one of you. Who asked the question, by the way? Who was the first person to I know Scott did. Was there anybody else? It was over there, wasn't it? You are the winner of a 4 terabyte hard drive, by the way. Here you go. Enjoy. It's 4 terabytes. Now you can go on Amazon and buy a second one, and you got yourself the low-tech backup solution. All right, questions, anybody? We're at questions and answers at this point. Yes.
So Smitty, so comparison to an SSD drive to a CD to a thumb drive.
Mm-hmm. SSD is going to be the most reliable out of the 3, by far.
But for storage permanently, where is your better value? Does the CD store it longer? Better? Does
No.
the thumb drive store it?
Negative. So SSD's lifespan is based on I/O.
Right.
CD's lifespan is based on physical media, the actual material inside that disk. And believe it or not, CDs are not forever. They last about 20 years or so, which sounds like a long time. In fact, I think I have some that go even further than 20 years, but they're rated for that.
How about thumb drives?
Thumb drives are typically the cheapest solution out there. They're great for getting a file from A to B, but they have a high error rate and they're slow. So I wouldn't use thumb drives. I mean, they're great for getting data back and forth, but long-term backup, plus the time that it takes to copy your data to, for example, a thumb drive, that's relatively slow in comparison to a USB 3 hard drive, for example, where you'll get a much faster read and write, or an SSD where you'll get blazing fast speed. Any other questions? Yeah, Jerry.
Great theory. This is something we've discussed on the Coffee Break Net, on the Elmer Net. My little balloon and DVD faith was popped by Greg, KO68, but he said, hey, Jerry, they don't last forever. And that's when all this started. Now, great theory. Let's bring it back down a step. Money. Cost overrides all of this. Backblaze, all the others, they cost a lot of money.
Great question.
What do you recommend with, I mean, we're hams.
Well, I have to ask a question real quick. The gentleman I gave the drive to, I apologize, I didn't look at your call, but the gentleman that has my hard drive, for example, how much do you think it is if that is damaged? Like you drop it, it breaks, whatever.
Free.
Well, yes, it's worth nothing at that point, but how much do you think it is to repair and get that data? It could be thousands of dollars for you to get that data extracted, and there's no guarantee they're even going to get it all. So you have to ask yourself, in the scenario where your house burns down, or there's a flood, or that media is damaged, how much are you willing to spend to send it off to like Drive Savers, for example, and have them get the data off? The answer is a lot. Now, 2 drives like that, the low-tech option, the cost, Jerry, $100. And then you just rotate them through. Backblaze, a solution like that, for example, is about $100 a year. So it's an annual fee, and it's all you can eat. 1 file, 10,000 files, 100,000 files, doesn't matter, and it does it all in the background on your laptop or your PC. It is a license type thing, so you do need to pay every year, and of course, it does just back up a single computer. Now, for me, I run it on my server, which acts as a NAS, so I've got a 4-drive array that, and I have Backblaze running on that. So I'm kind of gaming the system a bit because I'm backing up my network-attached storage. And in that example, really, a NAS box, for example, is really the equivalent of 2 hard drives. They're just automatically, it doesn't matter what the configuration is, but just automatically writing the data to multiple drives for better redundancy. But again, it's still a physical drive. It's still located in my wiring closet at home. And if something happens to my home, I could lose my data. I won't lose my data because I've got it going to a cloud provider. By the way, something good to know is, get Dropbox, Google Drive. Now, they're a great solution. Again, they're going to be a cloud solution. They're a very cost-effective and in some cases completely free solution. The club uses it too. We eat your own dog food here. But a great solution for copying important files up, and you can kind of share that. It will update automatically. Just an idea. Yeah, question.
Question about Dropbox. If you get their free edition, there are some file insecurities. If you get the paid version, your files are protected. If you read the fine print, it looked like they may have some access to your data if you on the free system.
Thank you. I don't subscribe to that service, but that's important to note. I don't have as much experience there.
So a suggestion for the offsite strategy, turn into a gift.
Come again?
A gift. So for my kids' birthdays this year, or for Christmas I think it was, I took all the family photos, we scanned everything, I put them on a hard drive, and they each got a copy of this thing with everything on it. So now they can go back to the family photos, they can look, the plays the kids were in 7th grade and that kind of stuff. But now they have, also it's offsite storage for that stuff now.
I love that idea, and might I say, you should have your daughter, your son, or your family add their own stuff on there, and you rotate it through so you've got their backup.
The drives were much bigger than it needed to be for that storage. So with the extra space, back up your own computers onto it, which is the last point I wanted to make. I have some backup tapes that the drive is no longer in existence on an interface that you can't find on anything newer than Windows 95. The tape is useless. So you got to make sure that as you rotate these things over time, you keep rotating them onto media that you can actually access.
Absolutely.
And look at current things. USB seems to be pretty stable, so that's why my current standard. But someday it's going to change, and you got to make sure that the interface that you actually back up your data onto can be read by something. Not if you have the only copy of that tape drive, that doesn't do any good because the machine's gone. The tape is no longer useful.
So do any services, in case they go out of business, that data that you trusted online might Are there any services out there that have like a system, a guaranteed backup, kind of like in real estate? Somebody stands behind that data to make sure that data is secure and saved and passed forward.
There are companies out there. I've worked with a company called Iron Mine, or Iron Mountain? Iron Mountain. I said Iron Mine. That's something else. Iron Mountain, which does that. They've been in business at least for 25 years, but they are still a business. So could they go under and could something happen? Absolutely. I would say, as a piece of advice, read the fine print and find out, those EULAs that we always see and that we blindly scroll to the bottom and accept. Read them, because that's probably going to have that answer. Again, it's a backup. So if they do go out of business and you lose your data on their backup, there's somebody else or there's a hard drive or you can do another method.
When I back up my data, I apologize to the Apple folks, but I use a Windows-based system, and I use a program that came with it and was discontinued a number of years ago called SyncToy.
I know that program.
I can also go into C:backup and so forth. Is there a program that you've used or you recommend that will just automatically go in and look for the data that's been updated and copy it over so I don't have to do it manually?
There is, and I want to say I used a program called GoodSync, which is it's a Windows application. It does just that. You set, what's that? FireSync? FileSync. Is it? Okay. Scott is saying FileSync will do that. I'm not as familiar with FileSync, but with GoodSync, for example, it does just that. You designate locations on your computer. It watches that like a watch folder when activity happens. And it's not just you putting a file in that destination, but if the OS makes a change to a file that's in that location, it'll see that and then bring that over. So you could use that ultimately as an on-prem, kind of like what you're doing right now, if you want to get from the computer that's doing your daily duty to that external hard drive, for example, that's connected. That would be a great idea. And then take that external hard drive and drop it off at Margaret's house the next time you go visit her. GoodSync. There's a lot of great options out there, by the way. That's one I should have done a little bit more homework there to come with names. But I'll find some names and I'll bring them to the group and maybe put them on groups or something like that.
Yes, on the newer versions of Windows, everything is automatically backed up to OneDrive.
OneDrive Microsoft solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do that. You can do OneDrive, Google Drive, Dropbox. I don't subscribe to Microsoft 365, but I believe if you do that, you do get a OneDrive subscription. Is that
Not even with 365. It's just install Windows and you have a OneDrive, and the default is it puts everything. Yeah. You have to pay more if you want to get more space.
Yeah, you're limited on space in Sonar, just like Dropbox and those things. You are going to be; those aren't backup solutions; they're cloud storage, right?
The one advantage to using the Windows is I had to reinstall Windows on the system that I use at my ham station. Mm-hmm. Completely reinstall it
from the OneDrive.
Yeah. I just reinstalled Windows, and as soon as I logged in, it immediately brought all my documents down, and within 2 hours, everything was just like it was before, except it works now.
That's good information to share. OneDrive, apparently you can back your OS up and have something to fall back on and back files up on your Windows machine for you people that use Windows. Just kidding, I use Windows. All right, anybody else? All right, great. Well, again, there's lots of information out there. If you have any questions, again, it's an area that I've worked in professionally. I don't work professionally in that anymore, but as a hobbyist like all of you, I have my backup solution in place, and I'm happy to share that. And good luck. And buy a cheap hard drive and back your data up in some form and function, okay? That's the message for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Smitty. Good advice.